Russia has once again interfered with another election, this time in Romania. And you're saying this time, it's the second time they've done this in the same election cycle. The first time the election got annulled because of all the proof that Russia was putting money behind a certain candidate, jiu-jitsu. And they found that, how did he not have a campaign yet? He won the majority of the vote. Doesn't make any sense. And everything wound up being that, Russia was behind this. So they annulled that and had a second one. And there really were two candidates in the lead for this. George Simion, he's kind of considered like the MAGA/Trump of Romania, kind of pro-Russian, well, really more pro-Russian to the point to where he was banned from going to Moldova and Ukraine because of things that he said and done. And then the other person who did actually wind up winning, which was Nicușor Dan, someone who is the mayor of their capital, and he was someone who was more or less more of an independent than a liberal. But after the first rounds and runoffs were coming, almost every single party says, we're going to go behind him because we don't want Simion. They didn't want him at all because they don't want a far right or a MAGA guy in their own presidential house. That being said, something crazy went on the night of the election. Now, we were covering it just like every other reporter, and in it, we started getting reports from people saying that, hey, Telegram is sending us a weird message and we don't know what's happening. Now, Telegram was started by a Russian billionaire, and it's supposed to be a secure messaging app. We found out later that it's actually not, and Russia actually has folders and folders of data that they collect on people, and when these people come in to get prosecuted, they whip out these things and make you go, oh yeah, it's not secure. So, around 5 o'clock, the day of the election, when what looks to be the Russians saw that, our guy is not winning, meaning Simion, they sent out a message essentially saying that there's interference from the, we'll say, European countries. But the way they did this was such a bizarre way. Now, I, luckily, because of the channel that we have here, I get a lot of videos and photos from people on the ground. I speak to a lot of Romanians because there's been a lot that's been going on the past few months. And one of those reporters actually sent me a screen grab of her phone, a video showcasing this message that came in and that it's real, because there's a lot from the Russian side saying, no, that never happened. And this message came in from the CEO of Telegram on the official Telegram app. Like, they open up the app, it's got the blue check mark next to the messages, and in it's a message from the CEO. Now, this happened at 5 p.m. Now, in his message, we'll read it in full for you, okay? A Western European government, guess who, and he shows a baguette, Telegram, asking us to silence conservative voices in Romania ahead of today's presidential election. We flatly refused. Telegram will not restrict Romanian users' freedoms or block their political channels. You cannot defend democracy by destroying democracy. You cannot fight election interference by interfering in elections. Either you have freedom of expression and right choices, or you don't. The Romanian people deserve both. Now, that got a lot of people off guard, because you're saying that at 5 p.m., so you're saying that the French government essentially reached out to you, okay, to say that we need you to kind of hide this. We don't need conservative voices. We don't need any of that. I need you to hide all of that. First of all, it showcases in this exact message here that they themselves were actually trying to do their own interfering. Telegram. Because they didn't have to put that announcement out, which, by the way, has absolutely no supporting documents. It's just a CEO just kind of coming forward going, hey, this is happening. Okay? There was nothing backing this up. But by them putting this message out is them technically trying to scare people to get to the polls to say, oh my God, if we go with Dan, look, he's got all these people and they're interfering. But when you really understand what Russia does here, they essentially told the CEO of Telegram, our guy is losing, and he's losing bad from the polls. That's what they were looking at. We need you to put out a message there which could scare people to go to the polls and vote in our favor for George Simion. And so that's why this message came out. There's no evidence that France did this. I will say that definitely there is a lot of, I would say, anger towards Simion from the French government. Simion is very, very MAGA. I mean, heck, he went to Donald Trump's inauguration wearing a MAGA hat. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, right? So all of this being said, we have proof now that, yes, this message came out. It came from Telegram, and they pushed it out to an entire country. And it was in their own language. I translated it. But it's bizarre to me to think that Russia honestly thought that they could put this out there and think that, this is totally happening here. But that's the thing, is that Russia doesn't think about this. Sometimes they forget that, like, Romanians and Americans and all these other countries are smarter than Russians, because Russians kind of eat up all of the Russian propaganda as though it's true. And they forget that other people are smarter than that, and they know when Russia is BSing. Actually, if anything, I'm sure this got more people, more Romanians to come out and say, Russia's interfering again, so let's make sure we vote for Don. That being said, Simion did a lot of weird things that night, which kind of gave us Trump vibes. You do know that before the election was even over, he announced himself as the new president of Romania, when at that point he was still down 5%, ultimately ending about 7-8% behind. And it's like, well, come on, man. Like, you didn't win. And so he went to the high court in Romania and said, look, the CEO of Telegram put this out. Clearly, there is interference. We need to go ahead and annul the vote. And in a fight that he thought he was going to have a chance in winning, every single member of that court said, no, there was no interference. You haven't shown interference. You know, before, the first one was annulled because they found all these fake accounts. They researched all the fake accounts and found out those fake accounts went back to money that was then put in through Russia. You see how they built up all those bots and those platforms? This one was just a CEO who is Russian saying that there was interference from the French with no evidence whatsoever. So the High Court said no. And so George Simion took to social media saying, the Constitutional Court has continued the coup by rejecting our appeal. The only thing left for us is to keep fighting. And dude, when I tell you, some of the comments in the comments section are sort of like the same things we saw during the insurrection that took place here in the United States. Saying, yes, we need to go to the Capitol. We need to fight for this. Clearly you won, even though he lost by what? I think maybe 800,000 votes or something like that. And so now we're getting to a point to where it's kind of scary. It's scary because we're seeing Simion do the same thing Trump did, but Simion is 100% backed by Russia. And though Donald Trump says he's not, and we've seen a lot of pro-Russian comments, we technically don't have proof that he is backed, though, from the way that he acts when it comes to Ukraine, like even now, where he's like getting ready to essentially pull away from everything, it does feel like Donald Trump is backed by Russia a lot. But it's money. It's all about money. You know, especially in the United States, the U.S. sees a big possibility to make a lot of money, U.S. companies, and Donald Trump himself, which is why when we see Russian representatives meeting with really Steve Witkoff, they're always showing him portfolios of things that they can buy and do. That being said, luckily in Romania, yes, the right person won, but it's a great demonstration of how Russia does get into our elections. They have different ways of doing it, whether it be bot farms, whether it's doing something like this. And it's terrifying because you probably didn't even hear this story. This is probably the first time you heard about it. But Russia is 100% interfering in almost every single election that takes place in the United States and every election that takes place across the world. And I think it's something you should be, well informed about. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated, so please do share my videos, subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate everyone's support, and I hope you're staying safe and sound.